The Orange County DA providing an update right now in connection with the Ivy League student Blaze Bernstein, who was murdered.
Suspect Sam Woodward has been scheduled to be arraigned on murder charges later today at 1:30 this afternoon. Let's listen into this news conference now.
To make sure that no stone is left unturned. We're continuing to encourage anyone with information that might have some tendency to be about this case to call Orange County District Attorney Homicide Unit Supervising Investigator Corey DeGraffenried. Corey's number is 714-347-8492. Over the last several weeks, we've discovered a glaring omission in our laws to protect all members of our community, especially the LGBTQ members. This community is often targeted for persecution and prejudice. I asked Senator Wynn to carry this new legislation, as she's not just a strong advocate for public safety laws, but she's somebody who can build bipartisan support and get the law enacted. Most recently, Sheriff Sandra Hutchins and I worked with Senator Wynn to create Erica Alonzo's law, which elevated the crime of dumping a deceased body from a misdemeanor to a felony. We're grateful to Senator Wynn, who will lead the efforts in Sacramento to bring about this much-needed change to provide protection to all members of our community, regardless of their sexual orientation. We need to expand the existing language of the Special Circumstances Murder, Penal Code Section 190.2, subsection 16, to add sexual orientation and gender to the existing protected classes, which are race, color, religion, nationality, and country of origin. The terms sexual orientation and gender will be defined as currently stated in the definition in Penal Code Section 422.56. As we strive to protect all members of society, it's a glaring omission that sexual orientation is not a protected class of victims under the Special Circumstances Law in California. Interestingly, they are protected members in other penal code sections, just not the special circumstance section. If the sexual orientation of a victim is a substantial factor in a defendant's intent to murder, then he or she should be subjected to the punishment of life without possibility of parole or the possibility of a death penalty. Unfortunately, laws often need to be revised in light of tragic situations. It's time now that California places members of the LGBTQ community as a protected class of victims of special circumstance murder. Although this draft legislation will not have an impact on the Woodward case, it certainly will fortify the existing language and address the gap in the current law that includes this much-needed classification. We hope that this draft legislation, SB 971, will gain momentum as it goes through the process. Here to share a little bit more about how this proposed legislation came together and how that process works is Senator Janet Wynn. Senator.
Good morning. Again, I'm Senator Janet Wynn. Before I make my announcement, and I would like to thank our District Attorney Toby Rackauckas, Orange County Sheriff Sandra Hutchins, who is represented here today by our Undersheriff Don Barnes, and their respective teams for their work on this case. I would also like to acknowledge the many family, friends, and volunteers who helped search for Blaze Bernstein during the days that he was missing. Like many of you, I personally followed the story of Blaze's unexplained disappearance and was heartbroken to learn of his senseless murder. As a mother of two boys, I could not begin to imagine the pain that the Bernstein family is going through, as well as the loss felt by his friends and all who knew him. As the investigation has moved forward, law enforcement has acted swiftly, and today there is a defendant who has been charged for Blaze's murder. In addition to these important developments, details of this case have come to light that have further underscored the senselessness of this act, as it has not been ruled out that Blaze's sexual orientation could have been the reason for this murder. This is a sad and heartbreaking prospect for all. Beyond the impact to those who love and knew Blaze, this senseless loss of life has highlighted an important gap in California Penal Code Section 190.2, which does not include sexual orientation and gender as a protected class. This means that under current law, committing a crime against someone who is a member of the LGBTQ community could be called a hate crime, which carries its own lower penalties, but murdering someone specifically because they are gay does not consider it a special circumstance, thus eliminating a more just punishment. The fact that parole may be an option in a case where an individual is murdered for his or her sexual orientation and gender is absolutely wrong and unacceptable. A special circumstance charge would be significant when dealing with murder cases such as these that are heinous and hateful in nature. A special circumstance charge makes a difference between parole and a mandated sentence of either death or life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although we cannot retroactively change the penal code for this case, however, this critical gap in the law must be addressed for future protection. This is why today I am announcing the introduction of Senate Bill 971. This bill would add sexual orientation and gender to the penal code governing special circumstance penalty enhancement for a murder conviction. With the introduction of SB 971, I seek to provide law enforcement with a recourse in cases where people are found guilty of murdering someone for their sexual orientation and gender. Senate Bill 971 would not only provide future victims with the appropriate justice, but will send a strong message and clear message to individuals who commit crimes against any members of the LGBTQ community that they will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Before I finish, I again want to thank our District Attorney, Tony Rackauckas, for drawing my attention to this critical gap in the penal code so that we can bring justice to families who have lost a loved one to this type of hate crime.
That concludes the formal part of this presentation, so we'll be open for questions and answers.
You've been listening to officials here. So the arraignment court appearance is coming up later today. And we've wondered if the defendant in this case was going to potentially face life in prison or the death penalty, those special circumstances. It did seem as if this announcement, which by the way will be streaming online, abc7.com, was kind of preemptive. It sounds as if there's not going to be the opportunity to create an avenue legally that they could go after this as a hate crime or special circumstances. So we'll probably find out more as this develops.